Hi, my name is Kristen Weardon, and I'm your host for Icons of Naples, this series where we honor our Naples community heroes, our movers, shakers, and history makers who helped make our community the place we love to call home. Welcome to Icons of Naples, where we bring you the stories and the history of Naples, Florida. I'm your host, Kristen Weardon. Today's guest is an exceptional force in the cultural arts of Naples. Kristen Coury, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Happy to be here.
I'm so glad you could join us. I know your schedule's very busy with the opening this week of the season.
Yes, we just opened our first show of the season, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, this week.
How incredible. I definitely have to make it over to see one of them this year, because now you just celebrated your 1 year anniversary.
We opened 1 year ago this week.
Wow. I just saw the plaque on the wall and I said, oh my gosh, it's been a year already.
It is hard to believe. It flew by. It was like being shot out of a cannon, for sure.
I can imagine. A lot going on the first year. So from the stages of New York to London, you co-founded the Gulf Shore, you founded the Gulf Shore Playhouse. Mm-hmm. Wow, what a labor of love, as we were saying before we started. Mm-hmm. I get to hear stories. We all get to hear the stories of how this was created. So let's go back to the beginning, okay? So you moved to Naples, and there was something that captured you. Tell us what that was like and what made you decide to move here.
So it was post 9/11 in New York City, and I had been working for the big Broadway companies, Walt Disney Theatrical. I worked for Andrew Lloyd Webber's company, and then I sort of stopped working in management, and I got into directing more, and I was doing assistant directing on projects on Broadway and off Broadway, and then 9/11 happened, and I just lost. I will actually back up and say I had interned for the first year out of college. I had interned for the English Shakespeare Company in London. Mm-hmm. Had England been willing to keep me, I would still be there. And but unfortunately, alas, no. They said, "You're an immigrant. You need to get out." So I moved to New York because that's what you did in the mid '90s when you thought you wanted to work in theater. You know, the idea of regional theater was there, of course, by the '90s, but it hadn't built up the way it is now. So you wanted to sort of shoot bears. You went where the bears were, and if you want to work in theater, you go to New York. But I never loved New York. New York and I had a love-hate relationship the whole time I was there. And then 9/11 happened, and I thought, I got to get out. But I didn't know where to go, and I didn't know what to do because I loved theater. I didn't want to leave theater. Theater has been the thing I've always done. I've never had a doubt about doing theater. And so the question was where. And my first husband and I were on vacation, and we literally accidentally drove into Naples. And we ended up staying right across the street at the Bayfront Inn on 5th. And when we were drinking our coffee the next morning on the deck, I looked over at the Bayfront apartments and I said, "Look at those colorful buildings. Those are apartments. Let's go home and let's sell the co-op and let's move right there." And he was French. He still is French, actually. And he said, "Okay." And we did. And that's exactly what we did. So I lived right across the street in Bayfront when I started Gulf Shore. I at first thought, well, I guess I'll have to give up theater, and then I couldn't stop crying. So I thought, how am I going to keep doing theater? And I realized quickly that even in this arts-loving community back in 2004, there was no professional theater. And so I thought, well, I guess I'll start one. So I went back to this lawyer friend of mine who was a producer in New York, and I said, I'm moving to Naples. I don't have any money. I don't know anybody, and I don't even really have a name for the theater yet. But is it too soon to start? And he said, no, it'll take you a year to get your 501c3. You're not for profit. Hit the ground running and go. So we closed on our condo in June. And by October of 2004, we were already doing a sort of one-night performance with Carol Lawrence, who was the first Maria in West Side Story, and 3 guys from Broadway. And we were bringing it to Naples, and we got an article about it. And, little by little, we grew from a $0 budget and no employees, only me, to now we're a $14.5 million budget and 83 employees.
Wow. And how many seats is the theater?
The Moran main stage is 365, wow. And the Struthers studio it varies because it's a configurable space, but it goes between about 100 to about 130.
If you haven't seen the space at the Gulf Shore Playhouse, you have to. It's incredible. I mean, the detail, as we were talking beforehand, of course, and the detail is just incredible in every space.
Thank you.
Every space. I mean, nothing is left to, oh, it's just a baseboard, or oh, it's just a wallpaper. I mean, you did a great job.
Thank you.
I'm impressed.
We spent a lot of time and a lot of stress and a lot of attention to detail. So thank you.
I can already tell we're going to skip around a little bit because on that note, so you came here, well, two things. You came here in 2002.
2004.
Or 2004, I mean. 2004. So in 20 years, this is what you created. I mean, that is a lifetime's worth of work in a very short period of time.
It felt like a lifetime's worth of time as well. You know, it was a lot of time, first of all, working alone, trying to figure out how to get to the next step, how to build up, how to get a budget, how to buy a costume, you know, how to really even just produce our first show, where to produce the first show, convincing people, because this was the dream from the beginning. Like I said, we had to get our 501c3. As part of the application for the government, we had to fill out, I had to find 3 board members. So my first board member was my realtor, literally, because I didn't know anybody else in this town. And then I had to fill out mission and short-term and long-term goals. So I wrote the mission, which was easy because I knew what I wanted to create. A wonderful organization that supported professional theater and educational opportunities for our kids and our adults, and you know, sort of just grow into that. And so along with that came the long-term dream of a building just like this. And if you look at the original document that I wrote in 2004, you can see that it says, start a capital campaign, build a building with a 400-seat main stage and a 150-seat studio and all the rehearsal rooms and classrooms necessary to make an education center as well. So it was always part of the dream. But for the first, I would say, 18 of those 20 years, everyone thought I was crazy. You know, so little by little, people would grow. And of course, if it wasn't for the vision of Patty and Jay Baker and their first $10 million really transformational gift, which then started to rally people, but it wasn't until really right after the pandemic that we really started raising major dollars for this. And it turned out that this $75 million capital campaign was really, really something that so many citizens in Naples were excited about. And so
well, you had
that's exciting.
Built such a name over at the original spot, which was the Norris Center.
Correct.
And I remember hearing and seeing little ads here and there, and I'm like, what is that? And I have a friend who lives not far from the Norris Center. And I would always, what are you doing tonight? She's like, oh, I'm going to go to the Gulf Shore Playhouse. And I'm like, now where is that? And she'd say the Norris Center. And growing up here, I've been here since 78. When I first got here, the Norris Center has made multiple transformations since that time. And one of them was your transformation. You seem to have configured a space, and they worked with you on making that space what it needed to be for you to have more people. But it's still, how many did it seat at its maximum?
200.
200, yeah. See, that's a lot. Most people don't understand when they drive by the Norris Center that space will fit 200. And then there was that little outside room that you could have a little gatherings, and of course the lobby way. And I've been there for a few things and a couple of the plays back then. But she always would, oh yeah, we're going to see if we can get tickets. We forgot this was happening. And it became almost, it was like one of those things where people would say, oh, no, I'm busy. I'm going to the Gulf Shore Playhouse
That's
tonight.
great to hear.
And it's like, do you have any extra tickets? No. No, they're my tickets. No, I don't have any more.
That's
I mean,
nice.
it was like people would almost like a scalper thing.
That's very nice.
So it really became, at least from an exterior view, quite a thing to do in town.
It's hard to believe because we really had a stage about the size of this room. I mean, 20 by 20, and no wings, no fly space, no dressing rooms. So what we were able to do, and we always used professional actors. So we have a casting director in New York. We cast out of New York. We bring in all the actors. We put them up. We give them cars, all the things while they're here. And we've always done that. So even when we were tiny, we didn't have 2 sticks to rub together to make a budget. We were hiring actors from New York and putting the best possible, even if our sets have grown so much, we now have a 25,000 square foot production center where we build everything, all of our sets, our costumes, our props, or do our lighting, all the things. Even when we didn't have sets that were nearly as good as we have now, the acting on stage was always impeccable. That was the thing we were really focused on.
I think that helped with the draw of people because they would feel drawn into your production. They would just feel it from how the quality, of course.
And it's funny because the feeling about theater in theater in a sunny place, I should say, I'm not even going to just say Naples, is that people think one of the challenges has been over the years is convincing both the creative teams. I'm a director. I direct many of the shows. I used to direct all the shows in the beginning, but now I direct 1 or 2 a season. Our associate artistic director directs and choreographs, so he does 1 or 2 shows a year as well. But we're always hiring also directors, designers, and everybody else from around the country. And in the early days, one of the things I had to do was convince them that this was not just, sort of summer stock or like summer vacation theater, that I wanted you to come down and do something real. And what's funny is that just yesterday I ran into a woman in the restroom at intermission for Virginia Woolf, and she came out and she had her face like, and I said, what? And she said, well, I'm from New York. When my friend said I had to come see this, I thought, I went to Broadway every Sunday when I lived in New York. Okay, I'll go see this because it's going to be cute. And I sort of laughed out loud when she said it, because I thought Virginia Woolf is anything but cute. It's tough stuff.
Yeah.
The actors are absolutely amazing, perhaps the best actors I've ever worked with. And so she saw that we were doing real New York caliber theater right here in Naples.
Well, going back to when you wrote it all down, I love how you wrote it down and then the vision became it. And they say, because I do coaching also on the side, and they say when you have to write it down because it makes that connection in the brain and it more likely to become a reality.
Well, I'm a big journaler. I 100% believe in that eye, hand, heart coordination. And I think that in addition, then you'll enjoy the story that when I was living over in Bayfront, when for the first 10 years, for the first 10 out of 20, I was over there in Bayfront. And back then, Naples Square was nothing. I mean, it had been razed to the ground in 2008, and then they didn't do anything with it for years and years and years. And I would stand on my balcony and look over here, close my eyes, and visualize a theater coming up out of the ground here. Furthermore, I had put a big giant check. Do you remember The Secret when we were all visualizing? I printed it out and wrote to the order of Gulf Shore Playhouse, $10 million, Patty and Jay Baker. Signed it, Patty and Jay Baker. And then, of course, on May 15th, 2015, the first transformational gift we got towards the capital campaign was a check for $10 million from Patty and Jay Baker.
That is incredible.
And when I left that apartment in 2014, I thought, I ripped it out. I remember I had kind of cleverly hidden it in my bathroom cabinet. I didn't want people to think I was completely crazy, although they already thought I was crazy just for what I was trying to do. But I ripped it down and I thought, this doesn't work. And 1 year later, it happened. And so it really does work, because also when we started looking for land, 2016, 17, we were looking all over 2 counties. We would have gone wherever was the best place for us to go, even though my heart wanted to do it in downtown Naples. I mean, I obviously started in downtown Naples and really wanted to keep it somewhere here. And this place, this area, this land became available, and I thought, perfect. And then they pulled the contract. They wanted to do something else. They wanted to do a grocery store or something.
Oh, no.
Then they came back to us, and I thought, okay, here it is. And now you can see my old apartment from here. It's amazing.
That is truly manifestation in my mind.
Crazy. So when I speak, when I do public speeches, I usually include a slide about being an entrepreneur. First of all, people don't think that people with not-for-profits are entrepreneurial. And
I think that's the ultimate in entrepreneurial.
In a way, right? Because you're also not reaping the benefits of the profits, right? And about being a manifestor, a visualizer, because it really, I do think it really does work. I think it's a gift that God and the universe give us, and that if we employ it, that it works.
And you had a very clear vision too about what and where. You had a waver here and there, but you really knew where your heart was. And well, it shows when you walk in the building. It absolutely shows.
Thank you.
So when you moved here, though, Naples in 2002,
in 2004,
when you moved here, was it? It was a change from a city, London, even a city,
from New York City for sure.
So what did you think? How did you feel about this kind of slower pace?
Yeah. So I hope I'm not talking too fast, because I still talk very fast.
No, it's okay.
So I was this fast talking kid from New York, and but I had grown up in New York, upstate New York. So it wasn't as though I was always a city kid. And I think I knew what I was signing up for. My Parisian ex-husband, maybe not so much. So he quickly exited the building, which was great. And I just settled right into Naples. I loved it. I've always loved Naples. From the second I moved here, I loved it. I never looked back. I was amazed by also the kindness of the people here and the sense of community. And now that I'm really in the community, it's amazing to me. You know, there really are these core group of people who are so much about making the community better. And it's just so wonderful to see, because in New York City, you don't feel that. You don't get that. You know, you could call up 100 people and ask them for a meeting to say, I don't know, could you show me something? I want to learn something, or I want to pitch you something. They would all be like, no, hey kid, I'm busy.
Yeah.
And here, you know, you could call up a stranger and say, I've got an idea. I want to come and sit down with you and just tell you about it. And they would say, okay, come on in. Let me hear what you got, you know?
Yeah, there is that. So they're a little bit more open to meeting people, especially if it's community related.
Yeah.
And they may not go for the idea, but they'll give you the time, and they're
sure.
kind. That's one of the heart things of Naples I love so much. So when you decided on this vision for Gulf Shore Playhouse, you say people thought you were crazy.
Yes. I think most people thought I was crazy. And what's funny is that they all waited to tell me until about opening night of this building.
No.
You know? If you had asked me 10 years ago, I would have told them, or if somebody had asked me, I would have told them you were crazy. And I said, I know. You know, I always knew they all thought I was crazy, but I just kept going. And what was great is that Patty and Jay are visionaries.
Yes.
They can see the thing. Few people can see. Very few people have imagination.
True.
And they could see the thing. And Patty, of course, is a lover of theater. She's named theaters all over this country, and she, she was a directing major in college, so she loves it. Okay. And Jay is so funny because he's like, "Why are you asking me for? I don't even like theater." But then he says, "Happy wife, happy life," you know. And so it's hilarious. They're adorable. I love them so much. But they saw the thing before there even was a thing, and they believed in it all the way through.
And you did your first production in 2 years from your incorporation. What was that like? Because that really was bootstrapping.
Oh my God. I was directing, I was in the summer, I was going up for 3 summers in a row. I went up to Raleigh, North Carolina, where a friend of mine, Alan Campbell, who had been the Tony-nominated star of Sunset Boulevard on Broadway with Glenn Close. He was in it, and he and his wife had started a theater in Raleigh, North Carolina, so they were inviting me up to direct shows up there every summer back in this time. In 2006, I went up there and directed Oleana by David Mamet. And we were finally getting to the point, you know, the first couple of years, we were just talking up the idea. We had Carol Lawrence, we had Carol Channing, we had Anna Maria Alberghetti. I was just trying to show people that we were talking about bringing professionals in. We were doing these one-night fundraiser type things. But now we had the ability to go into the Norris Center for a little while and do an actual play. So I said, Alan, we've got the production already up here. We've got the set built. Would you be willing to come down to Naples for a week, you know, and rehearse? We'll have to rehearse in New York because we don't even have any rehearsal space. Maybe we could borrow the set from you in the one we built for North Carolina, truck it down here, put it up, do the play here for a week. We did it for a week in the Black Box Theater up at FGCU, and then we did it for a week here at the Norris Center. And it was bootstrapping. I had to take that actress. So we ended up having a replacement actress. So we rehearsed for a week in New York, like I said, and we came down here. I took her to Marshall's and bought her a suit for $40, and that was the costume. You know, we didn't have costume designers. We didn't have anything yet. And so it really, really was bootstrapping. So for me to say proudly now, we've got a 25,000 square foot production center, 83 employees, 50 of whom are production people who make our dresses and our costumes and our construction and our whatever, is quite a change.
I'm going back to the labor of love, but you also kind of have to have blinders on at those moments because you can't look over here because it'll either break your heart or ruin your spirit about what you're doing. You just have to go, okay, we got this done today.
Yeah.
Is what I envision having to happen in those moments.
100%. And there were times when I can just remember sitting on a bench it was actually a plinth upon which a stadium-sized follow spot was sitting because it was the only follow spot they had in the county, and it was like literally for the size of a stadium. But like I said, the Norris Center was tiny. We were blinding the actors. The thing was super loud. It was bothering the customers. Like it was just, everything was wrong. And I sat there and I thought, why am I doing this? You know, working for free. I worked for free for the first 6 years, working for free, getting nowhere. I felt like we were getting nowhere. It wasn't taking off the way I wanted it to in the beginning. You know, what am I doing? But I always felt like the moment that I quit would be the moment right before there was success, and so I just never was willing to give in. And you're right about the blinders, because sometimes, when you're a founder, it's you, yourself, me, myself, and I, changing the toilet paper, up at 1:30 in the morning, putting the ribbons on the little favors we're going to give out at the fundraiser the next day. There just wasn't a team, or sometimes going to my sister's house and saying, all right, I need you to help me stuff these invites into these envelopes, lick, stamp, address, whatever it needed to be, because you just have to get it done. And that's the name of the game. So you're right. The blinders, I think the blinders still exist. Sometimes I'm like, don't tell me if that show isn't selling. I need to manifest it selling. So don't fill my head with
Don't tell me
stuff,
the wrong.
I need to visualize.
Yeah. Now, as a woman doing this, and I'm not, huge into trying to make the comparisons, but there is a little bit of, as a woman in the field, as a director, from what I understand from people tell me, I'm not from the arts, so you tell me. And then you want to do this big project. What was that like, being in Naples versus maybe a city? Or is it similar? Or are there still similar challenges?
I think it's the same. There are not, if you look at New York, if you look at off-Broadway and on-Broadway, maybe it's changing in the last 2-3 years, but there were no women directing on Broadway, off-Broadway, in New York at that time. And here it's the same, I was in my 30s when I started Gulf Shore, so people were like, oh, that's a good idea. And you really had this feeling of like board members saying, okay, oh, that's so cute, And so I think that's just part of the game.
I understand that. I was the youngest member of the Board of Realtors in '89. And so it was like, oh, your mom's in real estate. And I'm like, I've been doing this actually a little bit longer, working for her as a kid, you just end up working with your mom or dad or whatever business they're in. So it wasn't cute. It was a job. But I just kind of was like, okay, they just don't know me yet. So you had to overcome people not knowing you, the age, being newer in your field as a woman doing the directing and the creating and the founding. That's quite a lesson, though, for people to think of, is it doesn't matter if you want it bad enough. That's what I see coming out of this. So how did that smaller, intimate space work for you in the directing capacity, in connecting with the Naples audience? Was it good that it was a smaller space to start versus maybe starting in a place like this?
Yeah, I think what was good about it was that they had the ability to be very intimate with the extraordinarily talented actors, with the piece itself. You could see the tear in their eyes, the sweat on their brow. It taught me that intimate theater is good, because when we got to building this space, we decided to build it at 368 because we really knew if we even added 2 or 3 more rows, you would be just far enough away to start to dissociate from the play. Yes. And really, the play's the thing. And so, like Shakespeare says, for me, we wanted to create a little mini Broadway house here, but we've done so in a way that is still very intimate. All seats are good seats, and still has the sort of fun of a Broadway theater.
Yeah, the space is very well utilized from a visual standpoint, but you can feel the intimacy is not lost.
Thank you.
It reminds me a lot of some of the older theaters I've been in Broadway.
Yes, exactly.
Because I grew up in Connecticut, so
oh, great.
So in Fairfield County, 40 minutes from Manhattan with no traffic. So it was great. We'd just pop in and things like that when I was growing up. And some of the older theaters are kind of, they didn't have some of the regulations we have nowadays, because sometimes you feel like you're tilting into the audience if you happen to be up a little bit. But even in the upper seats, they feel right on the stage. And so you definitely you kept that for sure. You can feel it.
I mean, we did that on purpose. We really wanted it to look like, if you've gone to the Richard Rodgers to see Hamilton, that you're walking into like a mini Richard Rodgers, because it is a Broadway-sized stage. Right. And that's for a reason too, because we want to be able to give them Broadway-sized level spectaculars, but also we are in conversation right now with a Broadway producer, Tony Award-winning director and choreographer, about bringing in their new musical here, starting here, and then moving it to New York. So that was a model we always had in mind, and so we built the stage for that.
Now, does the stage size, because again, I'm not from the theater part, I do more like the video part, more studio. So the stage size will play a part in who wants to bring their productions here?
Absolutely. And to be really clear, I mean, we don't bring productions ever.
Okay.
So Artist Naples, for example, is a presenting house. So they basically just open their doors and a truck pulls up and they get their show. So if they're doing the tour of Hamilton, for example, it looks just like the Broadway version of Hamilton. It comes here, it goes to Tampa, and then it goes to Denver, and then it goes wherever, and it's the same show. We create everything fresh.
So
everything
a presenting house versus a creating house.
A producing house.
A producing house.
Yes.
Okay. So we now have learned something because I did not know the difference.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I kind of wondered.
Yes.
But I didn't know the most eloquent way to ask.
Yes,
so
yes,
I'm glad
yes.
you're telling me.
So there it is. And then if a Broadway producer wants to do a show, they will usually do an out of town tryout. In the old days, it was called an out of town tryout. They would go to Philadelphia or Boston or somewhere like that, and they would foot the bill in an old vaudeville house. They would do a Broadway version of their show, but out of town, so that they're away from the New York Times and they have ability to work out the kinks and figure things out and talk to audience members and do all that. Well, nowadays that the regional theater movement has grown up and there are credible regional theaters around the country in different major markets, they have the now ability to partner with a regional theater and say, look, you're going to produce a show in October next year anyway. So if we can sort of augment your budget a little bit, you can build a bigger, better show. Then you build it. We're responsible. You know, we create everything we do together. And then they decide. In some instances, they'll put the show on a truck and literally bring it to Broadway and open it up there. Or they'll say, great, that was your set. You do with your set what you want, whatever. We're going to build a bigger set to do it on Broadway, but we've learned what we need to learn from your production of it, and that's great. Thank you so much. But either way, there's then participation on the side of the regional theater when the show opens on Broadway, which is exciting.
Oh, I see. I love the clarity because I was not aware that there was a lot of differences, but yet I knew there was a difference. I just didn't know what the words were called. So thank you so much for that.
You're
I know
welcome.
Part of what we do this for too is so people can understand what's going on in our community. So this is fantastic. Now you were in productions you were in London. I want to make sure I get this right so you can explain this to me also. So you worked for Disney Theatrical and Andrew Lloyd Webber's Really Useful group. So explain to us what those are and how it helped you transform to what you do now.
Yeah, it was actually what I do now. So working for Disney and Andrew Lloyd Webber. For Disney, I was an international production coordinator. We had just opened Beauty and the Beast. So this was back in the days when Disney was figuring out how to do Broadway theater. And they had opened Broadway's Beauty and the Beast, and then they were bringing it to Japan and Australia and Vienna and London. So they were doing it in different places, and I was responsible for those details. Then when I moved to Andrew Lloyd Webber's company, I was what's called a company manager, an assistant general manager, helping do all the stuff, the contracts, the payroll, all the things that are required to keep the company, meaning the group of actors that are doing the show, happy.
Great groundwork.
And, what's that?
Great groundwork.
Great
for
groundwork.
This.
Exactly. We do a lot of that still today. And so then I transitioned out of those companies and started directing. That's when I started directing. So I've never been a performer. I've never been on the stage. I've always been behind the scenes.
So that would be called the back of the house?
More or less. Back of the house. That's exactly
But the director's kind of the front of the house, too.
Not really, but nobody even understands what a director does. I mean, there's people call me a producer all the time, which of course I am. But when I've directed the show, people don't understand what a director does. So it is very much back of the house.
Well, we're learning today all the ins and outs, which I think is good because you're in the community and people should know what you do. I mean, we know you as the founder of the Gulf Shore Playhouse because since this building has come up, there's been, the splash of who you are, but you're more than just the founder of the place. You pretty much are the nuts and bolts that created it all to go together, the parts and the pieces.
When you start something, I guess, I've never been a founder before. So when you start something, it feels to me that you just care so much about every single little detail, know. How is that bottle placed on the shelf? And what are we showing people? And what are they, So it's not just about the shows. It's about now the whole building is the show,
Well, we were talking earlier about the bathrooms and how when they turned out, you were like, what happened here?
Get them out.
And so they had to be changed. So we are sitting here in the Founders Lounge, and there's a beautiful plaque over there of the original donors. And philanthropy is a huge part of Naples. What did you learn about in this process about trust, philanthropy, and collaboration to make this all happen?
Philanthropy is an extraordinarily vital piece of business improvement and economic growth in a city. It is not just what people think. It's not just like a donation. Striking a check is, okay, great, I donated to that cause, blah, blah. What they don't understand is, like, first of all, it's renewable, right? If every year you're asking again, will you help us? I mean, a capital campaign is different, but we're not for profit. So 60% of our budget is raised every year. Wow. And so you're going back, you're asking people to support you again. You're asking people to commit to your sustainability and your longevity. And so therefore, the very thing we do, I mean, I didn't want to create this building so that I could hang out in it. I mean, I'm happy to be here, right? But it's for the community. I mean, we wanted the every single thing we did. The main rehearsal hall where we rehearse all our big shows, our Moran main stage shows, is also meant, it's directly below us. It's got windows on the street. It's got beautiful appointments because we knew this could also be a rental space where people could come and have their parties, their weddings, their Shark Tanks, their whatever, things are doing. And the lobby's open all day, and the bar's open all day, and the garden's open all day, so that people can come and enjoy and have a little bite and have a drink or whatever, and hang out, do their homework, read their guidebook, do a podcast, whatever they're doing. And so I'm excited, but this could not have been possible. I could have worked my butt off for 20 years. I could have worked it off for 40 years, for 60 years, without the community buying into the dream and being part of the dream. This could never have happened. And so what's great about philanthropy as well is that it's local. It's something that, Patty Baker says it best. She likes to feather where she nests. She considers Naples home, and therefore she supports Naples organizations everywhere you look. Their name is on something. And that is, to me, such a lesson to all people, because we have a lot of extraordinary wealthy people in this town, and some of them are not really philanthropic. And it's sad to me, because if they understood that they could be part of the growth. I mean, I just went to the Florida Chamber. The Florida Chamber of Commerce just had their Future Florida Forum last weekend. And there's a gentleman, Stephen Ross, who just gave an extraordinarily huge amount of money to Palm Beach, but not just the money. He actually brought his acumen, power, expertise, connections to this whole. He convinced Vanderbilt University to put a branch in Palm Beach. He created a K through 12 school, a very special school. He worked with the city on traffic and congestion. He donated 60 million square feet of, I think is what he said, of office space, and built housing. I mean, he did so much, and Palm Beach is transforming under his huge gift. But it wasn't just his money; it was his expertise and his time. Same thing with Jay Baker. Jay Baker said, "Hey, I've had a great relationship with HSS, Hospital for Special Services up in New York City. I'm going to call the guy and see if he wants to build one down here." And lo and behold, we have this wonderful orthopedic hospital now, and that's because of people who understand that philanthropy is more than just a dollar. It is literally contributing to the betterment of our city.
Well, like you said, the economic part too, because once you create something that the community is emotionally embedded in, they're physically a part of, and they'll bring other community people, people in the community to be a part of it. And then you have a hub, and in this case, or even in the case of an orthopedic center, that couldn't have happened without the philanthropic part. But then what does it contribute to the well-being or the arts or the creation or future? Like, this is a place future artists can be inspired.
That's right.
And that is what community is about, inspiring and lifting each other up. So I think there is a misnomer when it comes to philanthropy. I have a guest later on today who was telling me a story about, she goes, "Oh, I get so mad when they say, oh, just rich people did that." And she's old school here. And she said, we did that. We did it as a community back in the 40s. And we created certain things in this town. So that's why this podcast too is so important. To capture, so people understand it's not just about the money.
That's right.
It's about what it brings. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that is so true. And we're finding more and more as we talk to people in the podcast that they're grateful for the philanthropy, or they're also part of the philanthropy. It's an interesting dynamic we're finding in this historical journey that I've been on.
That's so great. I'm so glad you're doing this.
I listen. I grew up here. I can't even get the words out. I get so excited. I grew up here. I came here in '78. And some of the names I knew back then, I was telling somebody yesterday, I went to high school with some people because I went to Naples High. And I look around and I go, that's that person, that's that family. Because I just knew them as the person I went to school with. Maybe I was a little just not with it when I was in school or something. But then later on, I was like, oh, their parents owned the beach club. Huh. Who knew?
Who knew? Yeah.
That's why we had our prom there and our this and our that.
Yes.
Oh, that makes sense.
Wild. That's so cool.
We've have a lot of names here, but they've also gone. They've left us. And so that's why I really want to capture all the stories that I can, and we're trying to do a year. So if you think of anybody, we're open. We're open to guests that have a part in making Naples what we love so much, just like yourself, creating why we love it and why we stay. Let's see, we do this when we have great guests. We just go completely, let's throw the questions out. Where were we? That was the fuel economics growth. How did you know? We were right there. This is a good one. Okay, so you started groundbreaking in 2022, if I have that correct?
December 1st, 2021. Almost
2021. So
yeah.
almost 22. So post-COVID. So you started working on the plans basically during COVID.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We bought the land in 2017.
Yeah. So I heard you say that too. It was a planning process. And then you hit the pandemic. Tell us about, there were so many challenges during that time just for a regular business. Now you're constructing this beautiful building. Tell us what that was.
That's how much time do you have?
I don't want to make you relive it.
Those were dark, dark days. And I'll try to give you the very short version. So Patty and Jay gave us the first gift of $10 million in 2015. We didn't announce it until 2016. It took us really officially 4 years to match it. So it took us till 2019 to then have 20 million.
Wow.
And then there started to become talk in early 2020, of course, about this virus. And we were all like, okay, we're supposed to wash our hands twice as long, or, whatever. Nobody knew anything. And I remember having a talk with my board chair and being like, they're talking about, I don't know, what are we going to do? Like take temperatures? He said, well, that's what they do in China. I guess we could take everybody's temperature. I said, we're going to take clients' temperatures. What are we going to say? We're not going to let you in unless we take your temperature. I mean, we didn't know.
Right.
We had no idea where we were headed. The people from Naples, City of Naples, because of course Norris Center is a City of Naples building, they call me into a meeting. Well, we might have to shut you down. I said, what do you mean you shut me down? I've got 40 employees. At that point we had 43, I think, employees.
Right.
I've got 40 employees. You can't just shut me down. You can't decide that. Of course they could, and they did. Right. And so...
So you had the Norris Center going on while you're trying to plan and get this off the ground at the same time.
We were still producing. And it became very quickly clear, right? On March 13th, on March 2nd, we had our first gala where we raised $1 million. And 2 weeks to the day later, March 16th, I was standing on the lawn outside the Norris Center with 43 employees, crying my eyes out and telling them I was going to have to lay them all off. And that's because we knew if they were shutting down for, they said 2 weeks, that it was really going to be 4 weeks, and that we wouldn't finish out the season. And there was no reason for me to keep all these people who make shows on. I knew they could get unemployment because of what was going on, and I had to let them all go so we could try to stay alive, because it was an industry crushing, obviously, for us.
And that's stay alive for the next season.
Stay alive in general. Just keep the business alive, because, so some people are like, there's empathy and, lack of empathy, and think that maybe I made a ruthless choice to just lay everybody off on a dime. But we thought about it carefully, and we knew we had to act quickly because we needed to stay in business for the long term, because, again, we're doing this. I'm doing this to change people's lives. I think that theater changes lives. My covenant is with the audience. I do what I do so that the audience can have a life-changing experience. And audience, by audience, I mean a regular audience, and also our kids that we educate in our conservatory and in school, and all the things we do, and student matinees, and all the ways we inspire kids. So I just walked by on my way here, past a class full of star ability students, kids with learning disabilities and developmental disabilities. And it's just wonderful what we have the opportunity to do. And I knew we needed to keep on having the ability to do that. And that meant we had to live off this money that we had just raised at the gala. And I had no idea how long this was really going to take. And so we went into a very dark days. We're sitting there in the summer. We retained 8 people, and we would get on a Zoom at 10 o'clock every morning, and everyone was required to be on it. So I kept one fundraiser, one art person, one production person, et cetera. And we all talked about everything, and it was great. It actually was the beginning of a culture that we've created that we still have, where we bring all people to the table, and we really are super collaborative. We swim like a school of fish. And everybody knows what is going on with everybody else. We're not siloed at all. We're a very strong culture. And so along about the summer, when the Actors Equity Association, the Professional Actors Union, still wasn't answering the phone, I asked our associate artistic director at the time to write a play for us so we could put a one-man show on stage. I told our education people to get ready, because we had our show already cast, and we had this set on stage that we were going to use for the next show that was coming in, but we never had the show. So is there a show we can do with kids in this set? So they figured out, yes, we could do Addams Family, but we were still, Governor DeSantis hadn't opened up summer camps yet.
Oh, right.
And on the day before we were supposed to start, Governor DeSantis opened it up. So we started, and we started having rehearsals outside on the lawn, whatever. Kids were wearing masks, shields, everything.
Oh my gosh.
And so we did education for the first 6 months, of what would have been the season of 2020, 2021, before we could get professionals on stage again, which wasn't until January of 21. So we went a whole year having to live off that money that we raised at the gala. And we were lucky, because some people had their gala later and never had their gala.
And some people never had them, yeah.
And, for us, for the theater business, it was absolutely crushing, because, the whole question all the time was, how do we make live theater and keep it alive in a place, in a whole country where we can't be live with anybody, So, but what we did learn was that we could raise money over Zoom, which is something you should never do. It was always, up to that point, it was like, you do not ask for a major gift over Zoom, but everything was over Zoom all of a sudden. So we raised another, from that $23 million that we had going into the pandemic, we raised another 15 that fall, in fall of 2020. So we decided to have a party in the spring of 21 and say, we're at 34 million. We need to get to 40 to greenlight the project. We think we're going to greenlight it while you're all gone for the summer. So we just came together to celebrate. And little did we know that Patty and Jay got up and said, we want to give you another 10, because we're tired of waiting for this, because now it was already 2021. So that was 6 years after they'd given us the money. Yeah. We're going to give you another 10, but this time you're not going to take 4 years to match it. You have 2 months to match it. And we ended up matching it in 6 weeks, because people just thronged to the call. And so
that's amazing.
We had 54 million coming out of the spring of 21. And so then we were able to break ground in December.
How incredible. Yeah. I think also sometimes people need that push.
Yes.
When they say, oh gosh, they're so close.
Yes.
They nudge the husband, or the wife goes, I'm going to do this, or, the friend, the family, whatever, they start talking about it, and it creates a momentum and an electricity, I think.
Absolutely.
In the philanthropy world. And I really think and even in the business world, when some project gets like some excitement behind it, more people get on board and kind of roll the ball uphill, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. It's so true.
So you had the construction challenges too, for supply chain and all that.
Inflation, everything went up 15% just like that. So by the time we actually started building, everything was way more expensive. Yeah, we were right in the thick of it.
But again, another testament to it can be done, even when you think it can't be, and how those blinders really come in handy.
Honest to God. Or just sheer belligerent, ruthless passion and stick-to-itiveness, honestly. Perseverance,
Perseverance,
love that
word.
Is the thing, because I just wouldn't give up. I don't know.
No, it doesn't sound like it. You're like, oh, pandemic, all right. But here's another thing when it comes, I think, to business or really anything in people's lives, taking quick action. Sometimes you're going to make mistakes, but the decision's been made. The indecisive, can you imagine if you're like, well, maybe we'll hold on for a week or two, or maybe we'll do this, and you would have mounted some expenses, and now you're just like, no, a decision has to be made, done. I think it makes a huge difference, especially when there's a problem. I mean, in this right here, for all of you out there wondering in business, this is a great testament to taking action quickly.
Decisive realism. It's really important.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That and the School of Fish. Swimming. Did you say swimming like a school of fish?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Those are my two favorites from this.
Great.
So thank you for those little, I might use those again.
You should. You are welcome to.
Well, we're talking about testing faith and endurance was my next up here. So what personal habits and mindset that you could share with us during those times? Like you say dark times, but you say it and we can feel it, but how did you keep pulling yourself out of those, difficult spaces?
Those dark
mentally?
spaces. During those times, I employed all the tricks I have: journaling, meditation. I didn't drink a drop during the entire pandemic. So
Unlike
from the time we shut down, from the time we shut down until about December of 2020, I didn't drink at all. I was going on cleanse after cleanse. I was doing a whole bunch of really healthy cleanses. And so I felt great. I felt fit because I was going outside and walking every day in the sun, as opposed to now where I'm running around all the time and no time to walk. And so I just was really careful to keep my body and my mind healthy during the pandemic because I didn't know what I didn't know, which was, when are we going to get back to this? Right. But I knew it was going to be important to have my mental and physical stamina to withstand what we were doing. So
you went inward. You go inward during times that are a little bit dark and concentrate on the things you can control, which are your health. That's I work in my coaching sometimes, and people get really focused on the external, and I say you can't let the external interrupt your internal piece. So if you concentrate on that, sometimes I find other things kind of calm down too when you concentrate on yourself. So from 3rd Avenue to 3rd Street to 5th Avenue, Naples has evolved dramatically since you arrived in 2004. So how has this evolution that you've seen happen in the last 20 plus years? What do you think of the evolution, I should say, that has happened around you? Because your building's part of that evolution.
Yeah. It's exciting. I think what I love about 3rd Street and 5th Avenue is that I think they've kept their charm. Even if they've grown up a little bit, they still feel like old Florida, and you enjoy going to 3rd Avenue and 3rd Street and 5th Avenue. And what I love about being part of this evolution is that, and you asked this question about economic impact before too, theaters are uniquely positioned to be impactors in terms of economics. Because, for example, if you go to the grocery store, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go to the UPS next door to the grocery store or the CVS or whatever. Right. But with theaters, you naturally go shopping, or you go to dinner, or you pay for valet, or you get a hotel room, or whatever you do, because you're going to see a play or a musical. And so this area, when I lived in Bayfront, was an area of blight. It was, Naples blight, but it was mechanics and storage units and tire warehouses,
or a huge empty lot
a huge empty
lot after lot after lot.
Empty lot that wasn't doing anything. Actually, when I first moved here, it was called Grand Central Station, which made the New Yorker and me laugh. And it was just empty, abandoned strip mall.
I remember when there was a Winn-Dixie in Grand Central
Station.
Really?
Yes. How funny. And so, this was so exciting to get this corner and know they were building all these condos. But I knew what was going to happen, right? So since we said we put our stick in the ground here, AC Marriott has come. Excuse me. I'll pause before I talk again, so you can cut that out. AC Marriott has come. Grappino over here, who now has our light bites. We serve their light bites at our bar. They said they were coming here because they knew we were coming here. So they built their latest addition on 1st Avenue and 41. The Wynn building obviously is going to do something great. Warren Whiskey Kitchen, the Collective, all of these things have come, and more is continuing to come. When we first said we were coming, Mangrove Bay across the street was not doing well. It was not selling well, and the pandemic had been hard on it. We broke ground, and now they're sold out, and they're building more.
They did sell out pretty quickly after that announcement, didn't they?
So we're proud of that. We're happy to be able to contribute, because we have now, like I told you, a $15 million budget, and we think that there are differing numbers depending on who you talk to and how they measure the metrics on what people spend when they come see a performing arts event. But we think in Naples, especially close to downtown, that it's about $90 on dinner or drinks, or shoes or valet or whatever it might be per person. when they come out to see us. So we think that based on our 65,000 attendees a year, that it's another $6 million or so dollars. So we think we're responsible for well over $20 million worth, because we spend all our money here in town, you know, on all the housing we rent and on all the actors we pay who then go out and spend their money here while they're here for 6 or 8 weeks.
It keeps it all local.
Local.
It really is a local economy, because I don't know anybody that just leaves their house, goes to the theater, and goes home.
Who does that?
And
Nobody.
I don't know very many people. There might be a few that pick from the closet, but sometimes, especially, they'll make it a thing.
Yes.
Even today, the younger generation, if they go to the theater, whether it's New York, whether it's here, I see them. I mean, my son's 23, and he definitely puts on something different than when he leaves the house just to go hang out with his friends.
Totally.
Yeah. So it is, and it's all local economic monies you're talking about. That's incredible. I don't think people realize.
Right.
I'm glad we're doing this.
Right.
So
The
we can
set they see
educate
on
them.
stage, we bought the lumber locally. We bought the paint locally. We bought, we bought the equipment to build it locally. We've done everything.
You did as much as you could do locally. Yeah. That's important for people to understand because some people just drive by and say, oh, it's a pretty building. You know, they don't understand the impact that in those kind of sad or need a little uplifting areas that are around here that have really, I mean, I've just seen it after living here for years. I mean, yes, we have the beautiful condos that were here, but it also helps support the restaurants. When you're doing a place, just those couple of drinks or an appetizer is something they might not have had because they might have gone to another part of town.
That's right. So
it does help small businesses as well as, the big hotels. I'm glad we're doing this. This is great. So a little bit personal. You and your new husband, Michael Wynn, both have very deep ties to Naples. You both have built your own legacies. And you have a shared passion for community and philanthropy. So how does it feel to find somebody who really mirrors your heart about Naples?
It's wild. It's amazing. We constantly say all the time, how could we have written this story, right? Because I didn't know him. We're building, the Wynn building is going to include stuff for us. That's because when we first bought the land, we bought 3 acres. I didn't know the Wynns. I didn't know Michael. I knew Wynn's Market, but that's, we bought 2 acres here for the building to sit on and then a 3rd acre for our parking lot. And our owner's rep at the time, who was so wise, he had been a former city manager. He said, here's what you need to do. Go to the Wynn family, because they have this catering strip of land on the other side of your land. See if they want to do a land swap. Give them the frontage on First Avenue. And if they do, if they say, yes, they want to do that, then tell them whatever they build, you want some offices and some apartments for your actors in there.
Oh, great idea.
And so we did that, and we made the deal. But we made the deal mostly with Jeff Wynn, Michael's cousin. So I still hadn't met Michael. And then he said, and then if all that works, and you end up with this, now your land is behind, go to the city of Naples and offer to donate it to them if they'll build a public parking garage on it. And I was sort of like, okay, I'll do all that, And so we made the deal with the Wynn family. We did the land swap, went to the city. I'd like to give you an acre of land. And they were like, now, why would we want to do that? There's nothing there. And I said, well, let me explain to you what happens when you build a theater and how much there will be here. And you're going to businesses are going to want to move in, and they're going to want to know that their customers have a place to park, and everybody will be happy. It'll just help continue to augment this whole area. So it took, several years. Now we're in the middle of the pandemic, and one of the councilmen, Ray Christman, comes to me and he says, you need to create a coalition to convince the council to take your land. And I said, I need to create a coalition? I said, I want to give you an acres full of free land.
I'm giving you something.
How come you don't want to create a coalition? He said, it won't work. You got to create a coalition. So here we are, August of 2020. I call up Michael Wynn, who I now barely know. I know him a little bit now because of the land swap and because he was running the chamber. And so I was trying to get the chamber to pay attention to what we were doing. And so we'd met peripherally once or twice. And I said, I need to start a coalition. Oh, no, I didn't. I said, I'm wondering if you will chair the coalition in support of this garage. And he said, who's on it? And I said, nobody. You. But if you chair it, then people will come. And he said, well, okay. Because, obviously I knew he had a vested interest in it too. And I knew he had a lot of influence. We had asked him to chair a business breakfast for us once, and he did it, and everybody came, so it was true. He chaired it and everybody came, and we had these weekly meetings. And that's really how we met, was that I didn't know he had gotten a divorce during the pandemic. I didn't really know anything, and little by little we're on these weekly meetings. And finally, I don't know, one day He just, he said,
Test you out.
I would like you to come to this event with me. And I said, okay. And I'm used to being invited to events, and I'm like, okay, who's going to be there? What do I need to know? Blah, blah, blah. And then we showed up, and it was like his YPO group and 7 guys and their wives and him and me. And I was sort of like,
Not the networking event I thought it was.
Exactly.
I'm here thinking I'm going to one of those things
Yes.
where I'm going to be
Yep.
looking for money
Exactly.
and a coalition. And then you're like, oh, this is a date. That's adorable.
yeah.
That's
That
a
was
cute
fun.
story. So, yeah, I'm glad you shared that with us. I don't think a lot of people know that story. And isn't that nice that it just happens naturally like that?
Yeah.
And I think that's the way it should be with
Yeah.
relationships. It's just a flow.
Yes, you're right.
It's
and to
easy.
your point, we really do augment each other because we both have such a huge heart for what's going on in Naples. We were both just this morning together at a Naples Chamber board meeting. We're both on the board of the Chamber of Commerce. And so it's fun in all the ways that we overlap. I'm an alumni of Leadership Florida, so is he. We were both just named one of the top 500 business
Yeah.
leaders in Florida Trend Magazine, which is super exciting. And it's sort of like, how did this happen? Two people who on paper would have seemed like complete opposites, actually have a real lot to share.
That's incredible, and I like that story a lot. It gives women out there hope. So, what's next for Gulf Shore Playhouse?
Yeah.
It's been 20 years since the founding. What's next? What do we have
good
on the
question.
horizon?
What's funny is people obviously ask me this, and I'm sort of saying, well, first of all, I just want to enjoy it a little bit,
Yeah.
right? We worked so hard to get here and our team has been so pressed and stretched, and all the things to get this building open last year was, oh my God.
Yeah.
Quite the stress, and then going through the first year without knowing so much of what we didn't know yet. We now spent the summer realizing, okay, let's now codify. What did we learn? Let's talk. Let's learn. Now this season we can actually put it all into practice,
Right.
improve any of our systems, our processes, and now really focus again on making great art. And like I told you, we're in conversation with a Broadway producer. We're producing
yeah.
some new world premieres this season too. So we're working on new plays. We're bringing back our Next Wave Festival, which is our New Works Festival. So lots of things.
That's fun. That's fun. Well, I'm so excited you were able to join us today. I really, really appreciate
Thank
it.
you. It was a real pleasure
sharing
to
your
be here.
story and your heart.
You're a great
the arts.
interviewer. Thank you
Oh.
so much.
Thank you very much. You shared your heart and your vision with us today, and your trials and your perseverance.
Thank you.
So I appreciate you so much for taking the time. I know you're very busy, it being season and all. We're kicking off season here in
Here we
Florida.
go.
We're rocking and rolling, right? And thank you to today's location sponsor, Gulf Shore Playhouse, for having us in their beautiful founders room today. And also to our technology sponsor, Robert of Philadelphia. Without them, we wouldn't look so fabulous. And thank you to our listeners for joining us today on our episode of Icons of Naples. Please like, share, follow, and subscribe. Share with your friends who love Naples or should learn more about this beautiful place we call paradise. You can follow Kristen Coury and the Gulf Shore Playhouse online, but we'll also have everything in the show notes below. Thank you again for joining us today at Icons of Naples, and we will see you on the next episode.